Hello, hi. Tonight we are going to talk about the coal production in Africa and the role of the West of how they are putting pressure on Africans to start using renewable energy. I am Olivia and thank you so much for tuning in. We all have heard about climate change and especially now the with the targets and the goals set to reduce reliance on coal for at a certain time. I think 2030 is the next one. And they keep on changing the goalpost. And also, earlier on, I just saw an article that President Cyril Ramaphosa has asked the so-called richer nations that has been fleecing of Africa to give the money that they've pledged for renewables. So I looked at the numbers of what is the story behind the pressure that is now on Africa to use renewables. And look, in South Africa, we have a huge issue with load shedding. Like power supply, it's unreliable and it's a problem. But there are many factors to be blamed for that, but that is a story for another day. Today, I don't want to conflate any issues. So I went and I looked at the numbers. Because it's like coal is this big evil. And look, people who live close to coal plants, their health is affected. There are issues surrounding it. There's no denying that. But my question is, why now and why are they taking an interest? And if you want to know the story of anything, you need to follow the numbers. And that is what I did. I'll start off with the first article. Like I always say, the internet, it's a wonderful place. If you want information, I want to start off by reading this article. According to the web results, Africa uses a relatively small amount of coal for electricity production compared to other regions of the world. Here are some key factors about coal consumption, and I want you to bear with me because there will be a lot of numbers. But I will come back to these numbers to break it down even further. According to these numbers, in 2020, Africa as a continent consumed about 3.3 billion short tons of coal. I have no idea what short tons of coal is, but it's coal, and that's all I want to focus on today. 3.3 billion tons of coal in 2020. The main types, it's the hard coal and the brown coal. The hard coal, it's called anthracite, and the brown coal is called lignite. Keep this in mind. The largest consumers of coal in Africa. Remember, it's 3.3 billion tons of coal in 2020. So the largest consumers in Africa, it's South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria. South Africa alone used more than 200 million tons of coal in 2020. While the other three countries, which is Egypt, Morocco, and Algeria, used less than 10 million short coals. Coal is mainly used for electricity generation in Africa. I want to stop there. Okay? Remember the numbers, 3.3 billion tons of coal. South Africa is the biggest user of coal, the biggest consumer with 200 million tons. Morocco, Egypt, and Algeria with 10 million each. This was in 2020. Now let's look at the numbers of Europe. Stay with me. It's a lot of numbers, so I want you to stay with me, right? According compared to what I just read now, Africa uses a small amount. Ne? This was in 2020. Now Europe is one of the world's largest electricity consumers, with a total electricity consumption of 3.3 petawatt hours, which is 1 petawatt, it's a million gigawatt hours. The consumption of Europe is equal to 14% of the global electricity consumption. The average person in Europe, it's because per capita is per person in Europe, used about 4,500 kilowatt hours. The world average, it's 3.1. Some more numbers, but I want you to bear with me. Europe used about 3.3 million gigawatt hours of electricity. They used 14% of the global electricity. Then 4,500 kilowatt hours per person in Europe. The world average is 3.1. Stay with me. I'm not done. Remember when I started, I said, according to these figures, Africa consumes 3.3 billion tons of coal. Remember, that's why I said hold on to these numbers. Let me highlight this. Europe consumed 3.3 billion. And they say Europe, it's one of the world's largest consumer of coals. I want you then to go further. This is the part. The largest consumers of coal in Europe are Russia. President Putin, I did not know that you were part of Europe. When did this happen? Because the last time I checked, you were a separate country to Europe. So you need to come and account to us South Africans. Why then? When did you become part of Europe? Because according to electricity stats, you are part of Europe. So the consumption of Russia, which for the purpose of this information, they are now part of Europe, their consumption each, it's more than 200 million tons. Russia, Germany, Poland, and Turkey, each 200 million tons of coal. Then with Turkey, together, Turkey then used more than 100 million tons of coal. I want you to stop there. Remember, I ask you, please bear with me for these numbers. And if your head is swimming, I want to break it down a bit. South Africa, Africa as a continent, Africa. According to these numbers, we Africans, where some parts of our countries, of some part of the continent is not electrified. Is that the right word? But there isn't electricity, no? So according to these numbers, we consumed in 2020 the same amount of coal as Europe. They say according to these numbers, I'm not saying it. I just want you to draw your own conclusions. Europe uses 3.3 billion in 2020 and we also use 3.3 billion. But in Africa, South Africa uses the most coal, 200 million. One country in the whole of Africa, 200 million tons of coal. The other the other three countries, which is Egypt, Morocco, and Algeria, they use less than 10 million tons of coal per year. But apparently, according to these numbers, we use the same amount of coal as Europe. Do you smell a rat? Do you smell something that is stinking from here till kingdom come? And then let me continue, right? The next thing I want to look at, we have a population of 1.3 billion. The total electricity consumption in Africa in 2022 was 0.8 petawatt hours. That is less than 1,000,000 gigawatt hours. We use 3 in Africa. I want to come back. We use in Africa 3.4% of the global electricity consumption in the same year. We use 3.4%. Europe uses 14%. America uses 14% of the global electricity consumption. The average, remember we are the problem, the people who are using too much coal. That's what they say. We use too much coal, so now we must use renewable energy. Let's see how much electricity do we use per person. And this is still a very optimistic figure. The average electricity consumption per capita in Africa is 600 kilowatt hours. Let's look at how much Europe uses. Because we are the problem children most when it comes to electricity usage. Europe uses per person 4,500 kilowatt. In Africa, we use 600. You and me who do have electricity, it's 600 kilowatt per person. That's for the year, in case you have wondered. Let's go to America. Because America is the other country that is presenting us as the problem child. The USA is one of the world's largest electricity consumers, right? They use 4.05 trillion kilowatt hours in 2022. This is equivalent also to 14% of the global electricity consumption in the same year. Can you see how the numbers don't add up, guys? Tell me if I'm missing something here. The electricity consumption per capita in the US was 12,300 kilowatt hour in 2022, which is higher than the world average of 3.1 kilowatt. And we Africans, we use 600 kilowatt hour per capita. Then also, because we use coal, the majority coal, it is available, it's a natural resource, and that's why we use it. So when I looked at these numbers, it raises more questions than answers. They admit here, they say coal is mainly used for electricity generation in Africa. All right? It accounts for 18% of electricity production. In 18%, the coal accounts for 18% of electricity production in Africa. There's a mix of natural gas, hydropower, renewable energy. And then there are other countries who have no or very low shares. I want you to get the picture of what is happening here. Let's look at the role of South Africa. Because South Africa is the one. Africa uses coal for electricity production mainly in South Africa, where there is 19 coal-fired power plants, which, by the way, is not now operating optimally. And that's a mess. It needs a whole new discussion, a whole complete different show. So the total installed power generation capacity of coal in Africa, it's around 48.3 thousand megawatt, which is about 18% of the total installed capacity of all energy source. However, coal is a major source of greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution, and there are concerns. But, and this is where I want to stop, because I have been throwing numbers now around, and I didn't want to create confusion. So, for some reason, I'm freezing again. Okay, let me go back to. Oh, there, I'm back. I'm back. Right. Um, I think I'll just go back to the video because for some reason it seems again I've been having problems with the internet since this afternoon. So I will just be checking the technical side as well. So I've been throwing a lot of numbers now because I like to follow the numbers. There's a saying that numbers don't lie, but there's also a saying there's lies and damn lies, and then there are statistics. Because statistics can be tuned and used to my advantage to paint a picture the way that I want to see things, so how it can benefit me. We use less coal than Europe. We are not one of the greatest emissions of what is this? Gas emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, whatever that might mean. So we as Africans, we need to ask the question, why this pressure on us now? For Europe, for us to switch to renewables, which now President Cyril Ramaphosa is asking them, hello, you made a pledge to help us with climate change. So where is the money? Where's the moolah? So there's two reasons why pressure is being put on us. The first reason as always, it's money. To again milk us while putting fear in the hearts of our leaders, right? Or making us suddenly, coal is this big, dangerous, evil, dirty thing. We've known about it for years. So you Africans, I just want to ask, why then would you allow the West to come and dictate a sense of urgency to you? People in South Africa has been crying for years about coal emissions where they live by the coal mines, the mines itself. And then the coal power stations. There's a problem there. People are eating while they are destroying our country, while they are destroying our infrastructure. But this show is not about that. So I want to ask the African leaders, why did you wait for the West to determine how urgent this issue of coal must be? Why did you wait so long to address this issue now that it's urgent to the West, now that you must adhere to the Western standards according to their created standards, not your standards? Why is it that now, for the easiest and the quickest way to solve our load shedding problems in South Africa is to fix the coal power stations because they are there, they are in existence? The reason why we have trouble with electricity is because you did not maintain the infrastructure. You mixed the coal, whoever that may be. Coal was mixed with stone, or good quality coal was switched for bad quality coal. So we have been living with coal for a long time. It's a natural resource in South Africa. And Africans must learn to deal with the issues in their own time and not wait for the West to come and tell them what to do. We are sick of it. So that's the first reason, it's money. The second reason, I think, renewable energy. And yeah, talk about wind and solar energy. The biggest problem now in terms of the solar panel, there are one of the two big issues. Actually, two of the big issues is how they are going to get rid of the solar panels when it reached the end of their life cycle. The other one is storage of the batteries, the storage of the electricity in the batteries. So that technology, it's going to come up with new ways on how to reduce the size of the batteries, but increase the capacity of the batteries. So this is my theory, and I might be wrong. It's just a theory. I don't have enough information to prove it right, but it's a theory. Renewable energy is not working out so well in Europe. Renewable energy is not the end all and the solution to all. For genuine and a decent electricity usage and production, you need a mix. You need coal, you need nuclear, and you need renewables. It cannot be either or only this, because each one of those methods come with their own challenges. And what I see now, it's either you are for coal and against renewable, or you are for nuclear and against coal. It's rubbish. I will say it. You need a mix. And we must learn, the people who know what's going on must stop about this agenda of pushing something that will be to their advantage. And then me and you Africans, we will sit with this mess. So my theory is this. In Europe, they realized renewables is not the answer that we thought it was going to be. They are sitting now with a surplus of renewables, and this is a theory. They are sitting now with a surplus of renewables. Investments have been made, and where are the perfect place to dump it? In Africa. Because history has shown when the West does not want something, we become the dumping ground. And we need to say no. We must learn to say no and hold our leaders accountable. Renewable energies, it is a solution, but not the ultimate solution. We are not the biggest consumers in terms of coal. We are not. You know, when I said, stay with me in terms of the numbers, I said in 2020, the research, statistics showed that Africa and Europe used the same amount of coal, which was 3.3 billion tons of coal. But here's where it gets a bit tricky. Europe used, and by the way, like I said, Russia, for the exercise of these researchers, the researchers clustered Russia as part of Europe. So Russia, I do apologize, but the electricity people, researchers, they said, now you count under the consumption of Russia, of Europe, used 200 million. Europe, Germany, and then there are I think 2 other countries who uses 200 million tons of coal. Ne? And then Turkey is just over 100 million tons of coal. So from 3.3 billion tons. They say Africa also uses 3.3 billion tons of coal. But South Africa is the biggest coal producer, or the one who uses coal the most, at 200 million tons. The whole of Africa. The country that uses the most, it's only one country, South Africa, and they use 200. Then the other 3, Morocco, Algeria, and Egypt, uses just over or under or close to 10 million tons. But apparently, according to Europe, we use the same as them, as if we can't do the maths. We can't. Clearly, we can't count. Clearly, we cannot count when it comes to numbers. So Africans, we are being pushed. We are being forced to use renewables. Right now, for an average person in South Africa to install solar panels, it costs 140,000 rand. 140,000. I just want to calculate how many dollars is 140,000. So I don't want to lose you. Stay with me. I say today we're going to do the numbers. So that comes to 7,000 US dollars, 7,500 US dollars for an average South African to install solar. How practical is that? The other option is for your big business to generate their own electricity, to relieve the pressure on the grid so that more electricity is available. But for the average household, renewables is out. It's unaffordable for us. That is for the average household. So let's look at the realistic picture here. Right now in South Africa, the most practical and affordable, even though our electricity has increased a lot since money has been chowed by Eskom. So the most practical and most affordable form of electricity to produce electricity is still coal. We don't have an option at this very moment, with the way that things stand, to bring electricity to ordinary people in South Africa and to other parts of Africa. We need the coal. And coal must be let go when we are good and ready. And the people here in this country, I don't even want to mention their names. They must do what is right. They must do what is required, because it does not take rocket science to fix what needs to be fixed. It just needs political will and it needs willingness. But the